Morality can't be legislated, right? You've probably heard this reference from Martin Luther King, but is it true? Actually, every government exists to enforce morality. That's not controversial, it's unavoidable. Laws don't just tell us what's legal, they tell us what's right, what's wrong, what's acceptable, and what deserves punishment. So the real question isn't whether or not governments legislate morality. The real question is, whose morality are they enforcing? And right now, across the Western world, governments are quietly redefining good and evil. Not because morality disappeared, but because Christianity is being replaced with something else. Governments are designed to legislate morality. You see, every law that a government creates, it serves a couple of purposes. Laws serve to reward good behavior and they punish bad behavior. Every law shapes the conscience of the nation. When a law comes out and it states that such and such behavior is good and acceptable, it causes all of society to view it that way. And likewise, when laws come out stating that such and such behavior is bad and unacceptable, then that also shapes us as well. Now, the real issue is not actually the laws themselves that we're talking about today. It's the foundation of morality on which laws are built upon. When you change the moral foundation of a nation, you are changing what the people believe is good, true, just, and acceptable. Now, when we're talking about morality and the foundation upon which morality is based on, it's important to look at what the foundation of our Western system of justice was built upon. And as secular historian Tom Holland puts it, the values of Christianity lie at the root of Western morality. Now, there are three basic pillars upon which our Western system of justice and law is built upon. The first is a biblical concept of justice. William Blackstone, who was a key influential figure in developing the British common law system that we've inherited in the West as our general ruling system, he says, "This law of nature, being coeval with mankind and dictated by God himself, is of course superior in obligation to any other." You see, even he and many of the founders of our Western law directly attribute the foundation of this law system to a sense of justice that comes from the Bible. Our Western law is not just built on ideas that came out of nowhere. They are built directly from principles and teachings that come from the Holy Scriptures, which guide us upon what is right and what is wrong. This is the foundation and the bedrock upon which our Western rule of law is built upon. Now, the second key principle in our Western law is the belief that every person is made in the image of God, the Imago Dei. We take this for granted now in our rule of law. Even early thinkers such as John Locke state, "Men being all the workmanship of one omnipotent and infinitely wise maker, they are his property." Now, John Locke isn't even coming at this from a Christian perspective, but he's establishing that our rule of law, the way that we do justice and create laws in our countries, it comes from the belief that every single person is made in the image of God. The idea that every person has intrinsic value and intrinsic worth, it doesn't come from governments and it doesn't come out of thin air. It comes from the Bible and it comes from Christian theology. Now, the third pillar in our system of Western law is that there is a belief in objective good and objective evil. There are things that truly are good and truly are evil, not just a matter of perspective or opinion, but somewhere you drill right down to the roots of things and you will find that there is a good and there is a bad. Back in the 4th century, Augustine of Hippo says, "An unjust law is no law at all." And even Martin Luther King elaborates on this when he says, "A just law is a man-made code that squares with the moral law or the law of God." Our system of law is built upon the assumption that laws themselves are either good or evil. And that is not determined by the state, and it's not even determined by you or me. It is determined by the God who made our laws. Western law assumes three things that the Bible teaches: that justice is real, that human life has inherent dignity, and good and evil exist independently of the state. Now, this doesn't mean that every law that has ever been passed in Western countries is a Christian law, but it means that the foundation of morality that every law is built upon comes from the Holy Scriptures. Now, every building needs a good foundation. And if you want to remove the foundation, you will have to replace that foundation with something else. Otherwise, the building can't stand. And this is what's happening in our countries. People don't like the Christian foundation, but they like the building that's built upon the foundation. So there's an attempt that is being made to remove the foundation and replace it with something else. You see, you can't have a building with no foundation. So if the foundation isn't Christianity, then what is replacing that foundation? There is always a religion at the base of morality. So if you remove Christianity as a religion, then what religion will take its place? If it's not Christianity, then it will be something else, and that something will demand obedience. You see, there is a new moral religion that is worshipped by our governments. This religion is a man-centered religion. It focuses on the human being as being the prime focus of worship. No longer are we interested in worshiping deities and gods who are above us, but now our focus is turned inward to worshiping self. The focus of this religion is that man can ascend, which, according to Christianity, is the first lie that Adam and Eve ever believed, which was that if they took the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, they would be like God. This has always been the human temptation to ascend beyond our state. And this is the focus of the new religion, that we as human beings can ascend to some higher plane of existence, that we can obtain progress without God. Now, this religion is rooted in several ideals. It's rooted in Marxism, which teaches that we can have utopia on earth if we revolt against the systems of oppression that are coming down upon us. Antonio Gramsci says, socialism is precisely the religion that must overwhelm Christianity. He was not a founder of Marxism, but he established the thoughts of Karl Marx and developed them into later systems of thought. He says he refers to socialism as a religion because that's what it is. It really is a way of viewing the world. It's a worldview, and it consists of things that are sacred and moral and things that deserve our worship and our praise. This new religion is rooted also in spirituality, the New Age. The New Age movement causes the person to look within to seek the divine, that the consciousness might ascend to some higher plane. And the third root in this new religion is evolution, which teaches that we came from nothing and we will ascend. It teaches that humans can progress ourselves and develop into some higher plane of existence. It teaches that might makes right, survival of the fittest, and that humans need to evolve and to develop. When we do, we can achieve a utopia here on earth. That our destiny is not determined by God, but is determined by nature and by our own ability. Now, there's different labels for these movements, but it's the same goal. Remove God, exalt man, and crown the state as the moral arbiter. So where have you personally seen good being called evil or evil being called good in your country? Comment below so I can see what your experience has been. Since our Western system has been built on the foundation of Christianity for hundreds of years, one might ask the question, why do they want to remove this foundation? And there's two main reasons for this. The first is because men love darkness rather than light. People resist God because they don't want to be accountable to him. You see, if God is the one who sets our morality, then we have to obey him. And in our hearts, human beings love evil. We don't always want to submit to God and obey God. And it's far easier for us to put God out of our minds and make ourselves the arbiter of our own morality. So that I get to decide what I think is right and wrong. And I get to act out the behaviors that I desire in my heart with no accountability. This is in the nature of every human being, and it is rebellion against God. Romans 1:28 says, and since they did not see fit to acknowledge God, God gave them up to a debased mind to do what ought not to be done. You see, the scriptures even bear witness that human beings, we don't like to entertain God in our minds. We want to put him out of our minds. We don't want our consciences to be informed by God. We don't want to listen to him. We'd rather just do the things that we want to do. We put our heads down and we harden our hearts and we go full steam ahead. So redefining sin removes the guilt that we feel in our conscience when we do wrong. If we can change what we believe is right and wrong, if we can convince everybody around us that our bad behaviors, our evil behaviors are acceptable and good, or we convince everybody that the good, the true, and the beautiful is bad, we need to avoid it, then we can continue to do the things that our hearts and our selfish desires want to do. You see, if sin, according to God's standard, no longer exists, then repentance is unnecessary. But the second motive is that Christianity actually stands in the way of progress according to the new religion. And therefore, Christianity needs to be weakened and taken out of the way. When governments redefine morality and virtue is shamed, then courage becomes extremism. God-given authority becomes abuse, tyranny, and oppression. Now, it's important to note at this point that governments can't actually redefine morality. They can't actually change morality. It's not something that they are in control of. You see, morality is something that is actually given by God. And God has given every human being what's called a conscience, which means every person knows good and evil. Even if our laws will say otherwise, our conscience still testifies to us what is truly right and what is truly wrong. Governments can try their best to shape the collective, but they can't actually change what morality is. But here's what governments can do. Government laws can incentivize sin. When government laws give freedom and permissions for evil to prosper, it incentivizes depravity. And laws can also punish righteousness, to make people not want to do what is right, to make the consequences for standing up and doing what is right too heavy for people to want to pursue. You see, governments do have real power, but it's limited. They're not able to fully change people's minds. But the laws that are made, they do have an effect at shaping what we see as acceptable and what we see is unacceptable. Now, there are two institutions which stand in the way of the government from expanding to total power, and they are targets for it. The first is the church. The church holds the moral compass for society by God's decree. He says in the Sermon on the Mount, when he's speaking to his disciples, "You are the light of the world." You see, this is the church's job, to shine the light of Christ through the nations and to show forth morality. When the state redefines morality, it's exalting itself above the church. It's making itself the arbiter of right and wrong. And that's not something God's given to the state. It's something that he's given to the church. When the state does this, they criminalize faithfulness to God by setting themselves as the ultimate authority. Now, the second institution which stands in the way of the government from assuming total authority is the family. One of the founders of Marxism, Friedrich Engels, says, "The modern individual family is founded on the open or concealed domestic slavery of the wife." And both Karl Marx and Engels, they refer to the family as being something that needs to be taken out of the way, something which stands in the way of progress. So how can governments who want to replace the foundation of Christianity with a new religion, how can they remove the family, which is the bedrock of society? This was accomplished largely through the sexual revolution. You see, the sexual revolution was an intentional political tool. It served to create instability in our culture and particularly in our families, to tear apart the fabric of what it means to be a family, to be a husband, to be a wife. And from the sexual revolution has come many laws which time after time serve to erode and destroy the fabric of a family. Take no-fault divorce, for example, where people can split apart and fracture their family for no good reason, essentially. What God has joined together, he says, let not man put asunder. Or laws about abortion, where once we saw every human being as having dignity and worth made in the image of God, and now human beings can choose to kill their own children at the altar of convenience, the altar of their jobs, the altar of their comfort. Our school systems now that are run by the state are filled with content and teachings that are perverse, that are wicked and twisted, gender ideologies which stand in direct contrast to the family and to God's decree for marriage. Why are these things taught in schools? Not because they're better for society, but because they directly erode the authority of the household and they destroy stable families. From the sexual revolution has come a widespread acceptance of pornography, where it's everywhere now. And pornography serves to destroy the fidelity between married couples and to prevent people from getting married to begin with. You see, the governments know that a weak family and a silent church leave the state unrivaled. Now, governments have a choice to make. You see, they are instituted by God. They're given their seats, their offices by God. The authority they have is real, and it really is given by God. He's the one who gives them permission, and he's the one who judges every state. Their authority is not absolute. God's authority is absolute, but theirs is limited and is conditional. The power that our states are given reveal where their allegiance lies. Does their allegiance lie to God who gave them their seat, or does it rely to some other religion and to some other God? Who do our leaders submit to? Who is their God? The laws that they make tell that story. Governments either honor God by fulfilling their purpose, or they oppose him by redefining sin and demanding worship. If you enjoyed this video, then like and subscribe to see more content like it.